everyone, welcome to another video. If you are new, welcome, and if you're one of my regulars, welcome back. Do you remember last summer there was the scandal that was involving not just Dior, but actually before that Armani as well? And some of you might remember I did a video on it where I sort of reported on, there was articles around at the time that had come out to do with sweatshops in Italy. And what was really particularly shocking about it is that I think when it comes to sweatshops, when you think about fast fashion, you think about people being exploited and underpaid and in filthy working conditions and not necessarily being treated very nicely when they make things. But when we think of luxury, I think that's the last thing that we think of. And indeed, with brands like Dior, you only have to look at their social media, their Instagram, where they have these sort of images and videos of artisans wearing white lab coats in pristine environments, putting together bags by hand. And yet those images are a complete contrast to the images that came out last summer by a whistleblower of filthy factories, people, like actual beds in this one particular factory where people were having to kind of sleep there, cigarette butts on the side and dishes, just absolutely chalk and cheese. And it kind of, I don't know about for you, but for me after that, it made me feel like those images on Instagram can be nothing more than marketing, advertising, showing the dream, but it's not really the reality. And we didn't know at the time what bags this exploitation affected in particular. It looks like it was the book tote. So I've got the book tote here. And this is not the most complex bag in the world, but it is pretty expensive for what it is. I bought mine for $1,900 back in, I think it was like beginning of 2019, I think, thereabouts. It was a long time ago. But this bag is now over £2,000, and it emerged that actually it cost Dior a mere, I think it was $56 US to actually make that bag, and yet they sell it for so much money to you and I. So what happened? There was an investigation began. So what both brands basically said is that it was an oversight, an accident on their part. And the way they describe this is apparently they outsource the production of certain items, and they normally have, let's say, staff or people that would go and check the conditions of the places where their pieces are being made. And in the case of this factory in Italy, those checks had not happened. And then somebody had obviously blown the whistle and filmed the place and shared those images, and the rest is all history. But as I say, what happened after that? Well, investigators went in, and here's where it went. There were investigations apparently that looked into other brands to see whether other brands were also engaging in these practices, whether they knew about it or not. There was an investigation into this, and currently, as of today, from the information that I've sourced online, no other brands have been included in this. So no one else has been sort of done for this, if you like. It was actually said that these practices seemed entrenched for profits. So they're trying to get the costs down in order to maximize profits. And to do that to people just for profits, I think it's just gross, actually. But I also found another quote which was quite interesting, because although no other cases were found against other brands, I think a lot of brands were very nervous when this all came out about Dior in particular, because Dior's that brand that you wouldn't expect it from. That was that brand that a lot of us all said to each other, oh my God, out of all of the brands, they would be the last on the list that I would ever think this would be an issue with. But it was. This has had a ripple effect on other brands. They all went and did their homework. They all got scared. And this is from Caterina Accio, I think is how you pronounce it, Sustainability Director at Business of Fashion. But what investigators had uncovered was a system of exploitation so entrenched and proven that it could be considered part of a broader business policy exclusively aimed at increasing profit, Milan's public prosecutor said in court documents. So this is really what we're thinking here, is that did they know or did they not? Do we? And that's something that I guess is going to come out in court and has not come out just yet. But the question is, do we think that Dior and Armani knew? Did they kind of know? And it's about profits? Because what's being said here is that these practices were so entrenched and proven that it could be considered part of a broader business policy. Further investigations were expected to follow, with around a dozen more brands under the microscope, but months later, no new cases have been filed. But from there, insiders say that the luxury sector is stepping up to tackle an issue that's been a blind spot, and the brands appear to have made progress in tightening up their oversight of external suppliers. But critics worry the measures under discussion, voluntarily and localised, are simply adding more red tape without really tackling the underlying issues in the sector. But this then leads on to something else. So there is said to be a bit of a crisis going on amongst Italian leather artisans who produce the things that we love, you know, the bags, the belts, etc. There's a decline in those skilled people. And it's a combination of things that's done it. There is a crisis playing out against Italy's manufacturing sector, and things that are playing a role in this are general downturn in luxury. More people, I think I've said this before, but there's actual evidence out there, analytical evidence from the likes of Reuters and such, accountancy firms, showing that interest in luxury has declined slightly, and it looks like inflation, scandal and regulation are some of the reasons why those artisans are disappearing. Brands are basically cutting costs at the expense of manufacturers, and it says here now the skilled suppliers they depend on to deliver those promises are facing an existential crisis at a time where consumers are increasingly questioning whether luxury goods are still worth their fast rising price tags. What new models do you think could protect and preserve luxury's manufacturing heartland? And this again I find very interesting, that more of us are, like, I actually have spoken to a lot of you on DM, on Instagram in particular, and we've been talking about, you know, what are we spending our money on these days? And things have definitely got tight, particularly in the UK. So more of us are spending like a lot less money on luxury because we're putting money towards other things. But also a lot of you saying, you know, when it comes to the luxuries in life, £500 is a weekend away in Italy. You know, maybe not a 5-star hotel, but it's a weekend away. Or it's a card holder in Chanel. What would you rather have? And so many of us, I think, are thinking differently about luxury and what luxury means. And scandals like this, they ruin the allure, the mystique, the magic of what luxury should be. As I said at the beginning, we expect this kind of treatment of people who are part of the fast fashion manufacturing chains, but you don't expect it when you're spending thousands of pounds on these designer goods. And, you know, I realise that it's not just the manufacturing costs. I realise that there's advertising, there's paying staff, there's rents, you know, business rates, etc. And all of that needs to come out of the cost of things as well. So what do I think, and will I buy from these brands? Okay, so I think that we should keep an eye on this because the case is still being looked at. I did just want to come on here and give you an update as to where things are at. And this is where things are at. The case is still ongoing. No one else has been brought in yet for doing the same thing. So nobody else, on the face of it, has done anything dodgy or anything that basically should be illegal, is illegal. I have been turned off buying luxury, and particularly turned off since this scandal, to be honest, because, and do you know what, even like this book tote, I haven't really used it since the scandal. I look at it differently now, and I mean, I look at it and I realise why it costs as little as it does to make, because it's a very simple bag, but I look at the things I have slightly differently, and I'm enjoying what I've got more. I'm feeling the need to go and buy stuff a lot less. But definitely these scandals do put me off, because even my husband David says to me, like, we were looking at something the other day, like a bag, and he said, that book tote you bought cost literally $56 to make and over £2,000 to buy. And that's almost become for him the benchmark when he now looks at designer bags. And because he knows me, he knows all about designer bags now. I've trained him up. But he does look at things differently, and he therefore makes me look at things differently. So I am buying less, but what I am buying is quality, and what I am buying is mainly pre-loved. And things from long enough ago that I hope practices were better. And as I said in that Dior scandal video, if you're watching this and you own anything from Dior, destroying what you've got doesn't fix the issue. If anything, it's an insult to the poor person that had to make it, their skills. So I wouldn't say don't wear your stuff. You do you. I'm still wearing the Lady Dior, but would I rush back to buy another one? No. And that's just kind of my feeling on this and my take on this. But I would love to get your thoughts. And if you have any updates on this yourself, please let me know. And please, if you can leave any links below to articles that you found on this, that would be really, really helpful. Thank you to all of you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I will see you in the next video.